What's going on, Walking Dead fans? This is my review for Fear the Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 13, titled JD. Now, JD can stand for a lot of things. It can stand for John Dorie, it can stand for June Dorie, and it can also stand for John Dorie again, because in this episode we meet John's father, which was pretty cool in my opinion. But look, it's just a big coincidence, a lot of stuff that happens in this episode, you know. John Dorie's father, he knows the cult leader of the end is the beginning group. You know, it just ties together really nicely, but it's a bit far-fetched. But again, it's a TV show. I didn't mind it. I went with it. And I think if you do as well, you'll have a good time. And I think the backstory to it just makes the story just more unique for this story to have this kind of old kind of rivalry between this guy that used to be a cop and this guy who is a serial killer, and they met each other before the apocalypse. Now they meet each other in the apocalypse, and they're the ones who have survived, which I think is pretty cool. Really, really cool, even though it is far-fetched. But this episode again was pretty good. You know, Fear's on a roll this season. I would say 13 solid episodes, because it's just been fantastic. It really has. The writing is probably better than the main show right now in terms of just the story arcs, you know, the endings, how it leads into another episode, the symbolism. I just think it's absolutely brilliant right now. I think the Walking Dead main show has more kind of iconic characters, of course, but you know, Fear the Walking Dead's done a pretty good job. And I like each episode where each character gets their own kind of intro, you know, just kind of it's like a painting, and there's a cool kind of the music plays, and it kind of tells you what's going to happen in this episode. And this was kind of a June episode, but also it was a John Dorie episode, not just his father, but also John Dorie himself, even though he's killed off in this universe right now, which is a pity. But we open the episode, June goes to Morgan's settlement, and Morgan's pretty pissed off at June because he blames her for the baby not surviving, you know, because if June didn't leave, if she stayed in the community, Morgan thinks that June would have had a great birth. The baby would be alive right now, but it's hard to know because like, it could have been from the radiation from the plant that Grace used to work in. It could be because there was no nurse. It could be because the end is the beginning group attacked them on the road. They were in a car crash. That could be the reason as well. So Morgan's blame towards June, I think, is a little bit too much, because it could be that group. It could be a number of factors we just don't know. And it's very hard for us as audiences to blame a character for when we don't know ourselves. So I did feel bad for June. I thought Morgan went fully at her, you know, he wasn't holding back whatsoever. And I actually liked the scene because he didn't hold back. He was actually going right for her. And June then leaves the situation later on in the episode. She meets up with Dwight and Sherry. And Sherry's a character that I do like Sherry, but I just think at times she can be very annoying. I just don't like how she treats Dwight at times. You know, Dwight is one of my favourite characters. I think in The Walking Dead in Season 7 and Season 8, I would say he's probably the most developed character. His arc just was absolutely fantastic, and I think if you were to binge watch those two seasons, I think he would really stand out even more to you, because Austin Emilio as Dwight does a really good job, and I think in those two seasons he shines big time, and I was looking forward to seeing him in Fear. And this season, in my opinion, he's kind of left to the side a lot. You know, he's not given much to do, which I think is a shame, because he's a great actor and a great character, but maybe it's building up to something big. Hopefully it is, but I just think he's given these kind of smaller, you know, storylines, especially with Sherry, trying to convince Sherry, oh, let's be together and stuff like that, when Sherry doesn't really want to be with him right now. I know it is kind of annoying, because he trekked across the entire country to see her, to get her again, because he's in love with her. He wants to maybe have a family and stuff like that, but Sherry's kind of very distant. And look, maybe Sherry has a point because of what the stuff Dwight did with Negan and all the saviors and stuff like that. She's still troubled by that. She's still scarred by that, which is understandable. In this episode, she even name drops Negan. She wants to go back and kill Negan. And I was like, oh, we're going to see a crossover. Maybe next season she pops up to try and kill Negan. But by the end of the episode, it looks like that she's kind of seeing things in a different perspective because of John Dorie Sr. and what he went through for the last 40 years of his life. So it looks like she's going to stay around. But I thought it was cool that Negan was name dropped big time. But we have June, we have Sherry, we have Dwight, the three of them are together, and this old guy starts shooting at them, you know, has a pretty good shot on them as well, and walkers come as well, of course. So Sherry and Dwight deal with the walkers. June chases this old man, and she finds an RV. She goes into the RV. She's looking at pictures on the kind of the wall and stuff, and then the old man comes behind her and says, what are you doing here? And it looks like he's going to kill her. But we find out in this episode it's actually John Dorie Sr. And that's what I talk about, like, it's just one big coincidence that we meet him. And actually, in the last 40 years, John Dorie Sr. hasn't seen his son. He left him when he was like 9 or something like that, so he never really got to see him grow up or anything. And I thought this character was pretty interesting. I did like the character. I think it's cool how John Dory, his legacy will live on with June and maybe his father now, who survived by the end of the episode. I was actually fearful that he would die. He got a bad bullet wound, but he looks like he's going to survive. I would like him to be a great character, because I think he has something about him that's just kind of this old cowboy. He survived everything in his life, and now he is here in the zombie apocalypse, and he's helping other people survive and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty cool. But June realizes that it's John Dory's father. The two of them they bond in a certain way. They bond enough for John Dory Sr. to do to June what he did to his son, because he didn't think he was right for his son. He didn't think him being a cop, or him being the way he was, maybe obsessed over this case, was good for his son. So he left him. He just left him and never seen him again, stuff like that. And he kind of regrets that big time. But they never got to meet up in the zombie apocalypse whatsoever. So I thought it was pretty cool how they've been going around this zombie world, but they haven't met. And if he survived a few more weeks, he probably would have got to meet his father, maybe. But I just thought that was pretty interesting. But we find out something that I think is, it could have been cheesy, but I think it's actually really cool, that this guy, John Dory Sr., was a cop. And back in the day, his old case was chasing down this serial killer who is Teddy, the leader of the End is the Beginning group, the cult group as I call them. I just think that's pretty badass, because these two guys were foes. They were enemies before the apocalypse. 40 years later, they find themselves face to face again in the apocalypse with this John Dory character chasing down Teddy. It's pretty cool, and it's pretty badass. I'm interested to see where this goes. I would love for these two characters to have a face-off, maybe a fight, maybe one of them kill each other or something like that. It's a bit like Batman and Joker. They both need each other or they're going to die. So I think that's pretty cool. And John Dory, in his cabin or his RV, he kind of has pictures of all the old cases, all the people that Teddy killed, and he did some weird experiment shit on them as well. So I think that's it's just fascinating. And I would love a flashback to go back maybe to the 1960s, 50s, whatever it is, to see those two characters interact as younger men, and to see what that would be like, and then to see how it would be like now when they're older as well, and they've gone through so much shit like a zombie apocalypse. And they're probably not much different from what they were back then. So I would love to see that dynamic happen. But yeah, so he wants to get this Teddy guy. He wants to kill him. He wants to stop him, because he thinks that if this guy is alive in the zombie apocalypse, whatever he has planned is bad for absolutely everybody. And you know what? He's probably right, because all these theories about the submarine, nuclear weapons, explosives and stuff like that, it looks like the End is the Beginning group wants to blow up the top world, as I call it, like Earth, the upper world, and they want to live underground, which is scary. I wouldn't like to do it, but that's kind of what their plan is. And yeah, they need to be stopped. Morgan needs to stop them. John Dory Sr. needs to stop them. Everyone needs to come together and stop these guys, because they are scary and they're a bit crazy, and that's why I think they're kind of a cult. I really do. But we'll see how it develops. We only have 3 episodes to go. I'm so excited to see how the finale is going to be this season. Is it going to end this arc of the End is the Beginning, or will it seep into season 7? I don't know, but I just think it's pretty cool that he's kept all these clippings from the years and he's still chasing the same guy. He talks about how he captured him. We actually heard this story, I think in episode 3. I think it was titled The Key. I'm not too sure, but John Dory was talking to the rabbi about what his father did when he was a cop, that he kind of framed the guy. He was chasing down this guy for years and years, but he could never get him. So he framed him, or he set him up so he would get life in prison. Now, the guy was a bad guy. He was a serial killer, but John Dory Sr. didn't go the right way about it as a cop. And John Dory was telling this kind of John Dory Jr. was telling this story to the rabbi, and that was a really good scene from Garrett Dillahunt. I think his acting was top notch in that episode, in episode 3, I think it was, if you go back and watch it. But yeah, we get to find out, from his perspective, what he really thought of that John Dory Sr., where it never really sat right with him, because he framed this guy who was a bad guy, but he didn't do it, the honorable way as a cop, and I like that, how he admitted it and stuff like that, and it still kind of haunts him and troubles him, but now he wants to stop this guy for good. And I like how it's kind of the old cowboy and the old kind of cowboy villain are probably set to have one last battle, which I'm looking forward to. I hope they do it. But yeah, it looks like that everyone's going to come together to fight the end of this beginning group. Now, how do they fight? Is it going to be a good old-fashioned brawl with sticks and stuff like that? Because, like, are guns really that scarce? Like, the end of this beginning group, do they have many guns? And Morgan's group, how many guns do they have? So we'll have to see how that war kind of develops between these two. But yeah, so in this episode as well, June is trying to find clues where to find these guys. And she thinks that if they can find Virginia's right-hand man who escaped, remember he took Daniel, was it, and took Grace in the episode that Virginia died. He took them off kind of as leverage. And we haven't seen him since, but he's actually been living in John Dory's cabin, which is John Dory Sr.'s cabin as well. That's their kind of home cabin. And so if he's been living up there, and John Dory Sr. goes to the cabin, and before that actually he locked June into a room because he bonded with June, and he's doing the exact same thing he did to his son, protecting her and keeping her away because he just wanted to get hurt. But he goes to the cabin and he has kind of a fight with this Virginia's right hand man. I forget his name, one of the kind of sheriffs or generals, whatever you call it, the marshals, and they have a fight, and yeah, he's able to hold his own. He's a seasoned fighter, he's able to hold his own, but he's just about to beat the guy, but then he sees his son's grave, and that's when he realizes, that's where it really hits him, that his son has died and he never got to make up for what he did. And he gets shot then by the guy, but then June comes, kills the guy. Dwight's there and Sherry's there as well, and they're able to bring him in, John Dory, into the cabin, take the bullet out, and he survives, which I was happy with because I thought they were going to kill him off. I was a little bit fearful that they would, because every episode now, it seems, since John died, we've had someone else die. Virginia, Grace's baby, which was very sad, and stuff like that. So yeah, so he survived. I'm happy he did. But then they have a heartbreaking kind of funeral for John Dory Jr., at his grave. And June reads the letter that John gave her, that she never read yet. And in the letter, he talks about what kind of future he wanted, and if he was to die helping somebody, stuff like that, and how he forgives his father for leaving him. Stuff like that. It's pretty cool. And it was a very heartbreaking scene to see John Dory Sr. kind of be more free now because his son has forgiven him. June, like the actress that plays June, did an amazing job in that scene, reading the letter and also crying a lot and stuff like that, so you could really feel for the characters there. So this episode again was pretty good. I really did like it. And then June brings John Dory Sr. back to Morgan's community, and it looks like they're going to work together to try and fight this end is the beginning group and to see what the plan is going to be. So yeah, awesome episode again. This season, just fantastic. Fair play to the writers, the directors, the actors. It's just been absolutely top notch. How long will Fear the Walking Dead go on? It's announced for season 7. Will we get a season end? I think we will. I think if it keeps this kind of momentum right now in terms of the storytelling, if season 7 is as good as season 6, then I think we will. But yeah, Fear the Walking Dead has improved big time, and hopefully it will be like this for years to come. It's even better than the main show right now. But again, the main show is ending soon, so I'm sure everyone is on their A game for that. So I'm looking forward to that. But guys, what's your thoughts on this episode? JD, episode 13 of season 6 of Fear the Walking Dead. I thought it was very good. Really enjoyed it. Acting was good. And even though it's a big coincidence that John Dory's father pops up, I still think it's a really good storyline between him and the serial killer that they used to be kind of up against each other years ago. So I think that's pretty cool. But guys, give a like, comment, subscribe. Come follow me on all the social medias, Movies That Matter. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Enjoy your day. And next week, I'll review episode 14. Thank you very much.